Thank you, Professor Bhattacharjee, for setting the ground for the launch of the book. Now, may I request our chief guest, our guest of honor, our author, and Professor Bhattacharya to launch the book, to unleash, unfold, release the book. Now would be a good time to take out your cameras, and we would love if you could share the photographs with us too.
Yeah, we'll all get together.
Oh, no, close up, they can't get us.
I look like a dwarf by your side.
Thank you.
You might find my presentation adding something to it.
Okay, great.
Now, may I request Mrs. Mehta to say a few words introducing the book and share her motivation behind writing the book? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharjee, for the very enlightening introduction. Good evening, friends, and thank you all for your valuable time and coming here to attend this book launch. A very special thank you to Mr. K.C. Debu, Mr. Yazid Kapadia, Ms. Shenaz Kama, and Mr. Keki Daruwala. I must tell you, Ms. Shenaz Kama has just received the Outstanding Achievement Award at the International Zoroastrian Conference. Well done, Shenaz. And thanks to my publisher, Mr. Niyogi Books, Mr. Bikash Niyogi is here, for organizing this book launch. Trisha has asked me to say a few words on the process of ideation and conception of the book. Well, we the Parsis have been in India for a long time, from about 2,500 years ago. But who is the Parsi, nobody knows. There's no definition of the word Parsi. Though small in number, we have contributed a lot towards the development of India, especially in Gujarat and the cities of Bombay and Calcutta. There are some studies done on the community, but there's no study done on the rights of women, rights and privileges of women. And women are being discriminated against on the basis of some folklore or some misconceptions. So I decided to, when my own daughter faced this discrimination, I decided to look into the matter further. My daughter is married a non-Zoroastrian, but they had decided from the beginning to bring their children up in the Zoroastrian faith. And so we used to take the children to the fire temple until one day we were asked not to. On asking why, we were told the trust deed is sacrosanct. So I asked for the copy of the trust deed, and I read it and learned that we are to follow the Bugasarat priests of Navsari and Dastur Kekobad, Adarbad, Dastur Noshirwan in particular. So that got me thinking. I said, who are these two? Why are they so important? What happened before 1915 when the trust deed was written that the settler has asked us to specifically follow these two? And this started my research into who is a Parsi. Mr. Nariman has helped me tremendously in this book. I did not know Mr. Nariman, but as I had done all this legal research, I didn't know whether it was correct or not, so I sent my manuscript to him to look at it. He didn't reply for some time. In the meantime, I sent him a copy of the book I had written on my dad, Mr. Rusibi Gimi, and he sent a reply saying that it's very well researched. So I presume he was talking about the manuscript I sent him. So he said, no, please send it again, I want to read it. So I sent it again to him. Mr. Nariman is 93 years old, I think, but he had that entire manuscript printed out, and he corrected it by hand, and he removed the pages which he thought were wrong. He just put a line through it. Then he added the correct information. He wrote 5 chapters in the book, And he also advised me as to which judgments to add in the appendix, which I did. Then he returned the entire manuscript to me, the handwritten one, and he told me that you have got a lot of important information, but it's spread haphazardly all over the book. So he gave me a detailed list of how to rearrange all the matter in the book, which I did. Point by point, he gave about 30 points how to do it, and I rearranged the entire manuscript, sent it back to him. So he corrected it again. Then he told me, after he was satisfied, he told me, now I will write the foreword. So he wrote the foreword and returned it to me. So Mr. Nariman, is like a magic wand over the manuscript, and we have the book today. Now, there's a lot that we did not know about our community. The first thing is that I have published in my book copies from a judgment called Saklat versus Bella. What we have today available is about 20 pages of a judgment, which was the final judgment by the Privy Council. But there's 1,000 pages of judgment which was lying in the Privy Council archives, which Mitra Sharafi had photocopied page by page, and she sent me that entire manuscript. From this manuscript, in this manuscript, the high priests of the community have been cross-examined in court. And these are the high priests, Dastur Kekobar, Adarbar, Dastur Noshirwan, who went to Rangoon to do Bella's Naujot. Bella was a daughter of a Parsi mother and non-Parsi father. And Dastur Kekashru Jamaspi, head priest of the Bhugasadat sect, who went to Bombay to perform Ratan Tata's wedding to Suzanne Bray. Suzanne Bray was a French Christian lady. He first converted her to a Parsi by doing her Naujot, and then he married her to Ratan Tata by Parsi rites. Now, I don't mean our present Ratan Tata. This is Ratan Tata by Tata 100 years ago. So these are the two priests we are to follow. And so now I understood the meaning of why the settler had given these two particular priests to follow in our Agyari trust deed. And I really hope that this influx of 1,000 pages of information will change the concept of our community of what we were and what we think we are today. Now, Parsis are usually depicted as a very well-to-do community, but this was not so. We came as refugees, we came very poor. We mixed with the poorest of the poor. In fact, we had completely forgotten our religion until about 1499, when a certain Changa Asha came and he retaught us our religion. He gave us our Sadra and Kasti, he gave all the people over there, and he sent priests to Persia with questions to bring back answers on religion. These were called the Rivayats. And these questions and answers on religion continued for a period of 300 years. Obviously, we had no personal law of our own because we had completely forgotten our religion. But in the early 1800s, we were governed by a panchayat, that is, a committee of 5. And their method of controlling the community was by beating of the shoe. And they got special permission from the British to enforce this system of punishment. Now, occasionally they would issue bandobas. That is, these are the new laws for the community. And the bandobast of 1830 is published in this book. It says that Parsi men and women were having affairs with Parsis and people of other communities, and all the children born out of these affairs were being admitted into the community. The Parsi Panchayat wanted to stop this, but it did not happen. That raises the question, why were Parsi men and women having so many illegitimate children? Well, the answer was threefold. First and foremost, child marriage had become a norm. So people were married off at the age of 3 and 4, and later on when they became grown up, they found that they were not compatible. And divorce is an expensive procedure, long drawn, so they would just drift apart and they've lived their own lives. So the children born out of these affairs were not legitimate, they were illegitimate. Secondly, prostitution was an official profession at that time. The census of Bombay of 1860 had registered 41 Parsi prostitutes. And All children born of prostitutes are accepted into the community and the religion. Our Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act of 1865 had a very, what shall I say, peculiar provision, especially for men. They said that, what is this word? Bigamy. Bigamy is sex with a woman other than a prostitute. So men were given the official right to visit prostitutes. Well, Parsis were traders. They amassed great wealth, but this came at a personal cost. Often they would go abroad, they would stay for 7 years, they would have to sign a contract saying they cannot leave before 7 years. They'd make 3-4 voyages like that. So maybe 28, 30 years of their lives they would spend outside the country. Very often they would have a second family over there. My husband's great-grandfather had a Chinese wife. And when he fell ill, she came down to take care of him, much to the disgust of her Parsi wife. And when he passed away, she just packed her bags and left. Now, we have all done our DNA analysis at this 23andMe, and it also gives us our DNA relatives. So Jahan got a message from a Chinese girl saying that she is the second cousin. So the conclusion was clear. All the illegitimate children of Parsi men and women were accepted into the community in the past. So why are the legitimate children of Parsi women being rejected now? Well, the Special Marriage Act may be the cause of the problem. I'll just give you a little short history on that. In 1865, we had our first Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act. Here a Parsi could marry a Parsi. In 1872 was the first Special Marriage Act, where two people of different faiths could marry. But they had to sign a declaration saying that they have separated themselves from the religion. They are not connected with their religion anymore. So at this stage, a Parsi could marry a Parsi, or they could marry under the Special Marriage Act and give up their religion, or there was a third alternative, they could convert to the one spouse's religion and marry under the personal law. Rati Petit converted to the Muslim religion and married Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And Suzanne Bray converted to the Parsi religion and married Ratan Tata. Now, in 1954, a new Special Marriage Act was made. And by this act, a Parsi man could marry a non-Parsi woman and they could both maintain their faiths. So now only intermarriage became a possibility and the children of intermarried couples became a reality, legitimate children. So there is no age-old custom regarding intermarried women and their children. It was only possible after 1954. Now, there's one more flaw in this thing, because in 1936, we had our second Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act. 1936. In this act, a Parsi man could marry a Parsi woman, yes, but Parsi was defined in this act. It was defined as a Parsi Zoroastrian. This was the first time in all these years that the word Parsi was defined as Parsi Zoroastrian. And there was also a clause saying how you could cease to be a Parsi. You could cease to be a Parsi by converting to another religion. So in effect, who is not a Parsi is also defined by this Special Marriage Act. Very often, who is or is not a Parsi is defined by that old judgment of 1905 and 1915. At that time, the priests had done the religious ceremonies of conversion of Suzanne Bray and of the Navjot of Bella. But the judge decided that though conversion is a tenet of the religion, and yes, a child of a Parsi mother can be initiated into the religion if she wants to, but they decided to differentiate between the words Parsi and Zoroastrian. They said Parsi is a race or caste, and Zoroastrian is a religion. This was in 1905, 1915. On 1936, our Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act doesn't give any creed to race or caste. It only says religion. That A Parsi is a Parsi Zoroastrian, and you cease to be a Parsi by not being a Zoroastrian. And this law was used in court. You know that? In 1937, there was a case. Where's it gone? Yes, there was a case where the woman said that her husband has converted to the Muslim religion, and divorce was granted because he was no longer a Parsi. And in 1984, Maneka Gandhi versus Indira Gandhi, Maneka Gandhi wanted to claim that her husband Sanjay was a Parsi, and she wanted to claim inheritance rights under the Parsi law. But the court ruled that Sanjay's Navjot was not performed, he is not a Zoroastrian and therefore not a Parsi. So these are very important judgments which have not been considered. Then in 1960, Justice Modi in Irani versus Irani, he decreed that the word Parsi is used for the Zoroastrians of India and Iran. I'll just read out what Mr. Fali Nariman wrote in the foreword of the book. It was held at variance with the views expressed in Pettit's case, 1908, as well as views expressed by the Privy Council in Bella's case. The Bombay High Court held that Parsi meant and only meant a person professing the Zoroastrian religion, whether in India or Iran. This particular judgment I have got from Fali Nariman, and it's printed in the book also, in the appendix. Though there is so much debate about Parsi Zoroastrian, but the word Zoroastrianism itself was only coined in 1874. It was not there before. Reverend Archibald Henry Sayce coined this word in 1874. The religion from ancient times was called the Parsi religion, or the Dena religion, or the Mazdayasti religion, or the good religion. Our own Dadabai Navroji read a paper on the Parsi religion at London, and similarly, Reverend John Wilson wrote his treatise on the Parsi religion as contained in the Zen Avesta. So before 1874, there was no word like Zoroastrianism. It was only invented later. Today, Parsi women in an interfaith marriage and their children often face discrimination. But in 1905, the court had appointed an expert committee on religion, and the most senior priests were part of that committee. And they were asked this question. I just read it out. Question and answers in religion filed before Commissioner in Saklat versus Bella, suit number 91 of 1915. It says, there is a Baste Kustian, that is to say, wearing sacred girdle round her waist widow, without a husband, and she had sexual intercourse with a Durvand, alien in religion. She conceived and gave birth to a child. On the death of the child, together with what living person's name, its own name be recited. The answer in brief was given, Adar Cheher is the name for the child, and to give up the child to the religion of the father was a sin. This was the answer given by the expert committee in religion in 1905. The question itself is very relevant because it asks what prayers are to be said, signifying unconditional acceptance of the child of a Parsi mother with a non-Parsi father. I wonder why we are told the exact opposite today. In India today, as Mr. Fali Nariman has written in the foreword of the book, the Constitution of India has conferred a separate fundamental right on all persons to freely express and practice their religion, no matter whether they belong to any race or caste. Religion has displaced caste. As India's foremost constitutional lawyer, he has expressed his personal point of view on the current state of the law regarding intermarried Parsi women and their children, and the constitutional remedy available to enforce it. With more than 50% of our marriages being interfaith, I think we should encourage our women who marry out to bring the children up in our faith. George Washington had said, truth will ultimately prevail where there are pains taken to bring it to light. The research presented in this book under the guidance of Mr. Fali Nariman was started for personal reasons. It is perhaps now a clarion call for revealing the truth about our past and re-establishing the rights of all our intermarried Parsi women and their children who have had their navjot done. Thank you. Not heard.
Thank you very much
Not
for
heard.
sharing your valuable
Not
insights
postponing.
and documenting the years of twists and turns happening in history. And we have this wonderful book here, which must be read, not to, I believe, must be read by everybody who are not even Parsis, minorities or not. We could have gone on, but the evening has to come into an end, and we have the books waiting outside for all of you. With this, I would like to express my gratitude to all present here. We are very glad that you could make it here today. This is the first book launch by Yogi Books after COVID. We are extremely grateful to our chief guest, Arvad Yazad Kapadia, and our guest of honor, Mr. Kirsi K. Devu, as well as Dr. Sharnaz Kama for your kind words. We would like to thank the author for giving us the opportunity to publish the book and coming down to Delhi for the launch. We would also like to thank Mr. K.K. Daruwala, Mr. Prochy Mehta, Mr. Z.D. Arya, Mrs. Arya, and Mr. Jahan Mehta for coming down for the launch today. I would also like to thank the entire team at India International Center for their help, and once again, a very warm welcome to all our friends, readers, and especially the press and media for your continued support. Thank you very much.